Abandoned, pregnant, and on the brink of despair, Olivia Walker's world turned upside down the day her husband, millionaire Ethan Hamilton, walked out the door without warning. In a swirl of high-stakes betrayal, hidden agendas, and ruthless legal battles, Olivia found the resolve to fight back for herself and the child she carried. What happened next would shake New York's elite to its core, exposing secrets, unveiling alliances, and pitting a scorned wife against her powerful husband and his cunning mistress. Will Olivia triumph against overwhelming odds? Or will the glitz and glamour of wealth bury her story forever? Stay tuned for a jaw-dropping tale of heartbreak and revenge that you simply can't ignore. Olivia Walker was born Olivia Martinez, a bright-eyed dreamer from a humble neighborhood in Queens. Her parents, Robert and Sophia Martinez, were first-generation immigrants who worked tirelessly to give their children better opportunities. Olivia's upbringing was strict yet loving, instilling in her an unwavering resilience and a conviction that hard work could transform destiny. She possessed an innate optimism that shone through even in the darkest times. Little did she know how much she would rely on that resilience when her life took a devastating turn. Ethan Hamilton was the kind of man people read about in Forbes or saw on the covers of business magazine stall, impeccably dressed, with a charismatic smile that could melt ice. He hailed from a wealthy family in Boston, but he made his own millions in real estate development in Manhattan, revitalizing old buildings into modern luxury complexes. A self-styled mogul, Ethan had a reputation for flamboyance, throwing lavish parties in penthouse suites and driving the latest sports cars down Fifth Avenue. They met at a charity gala for the American Cancer Society, a prestigious event at the Plaza Hotel. Olivia had been there with a close friend, Chloe Davis, whose father served on the charity's board. Olivia's simple black dress stood out among a sea of designer gowns, and Ethan, bored by the usual crowd of Manhattan socialites, noticed her sincerity and unassuming beauty. Their conversation flowed with surprising ease. Olivia shared how she was earning her master's degree in sociology at NYU, while Ethan spoke about his philanthropic endeavor scholarship funds and community projects. Or so he claimed. Their courtship was swift. Dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants in Tribeca, invitations to exclusive art openings at MoMA, weekend getaways to the Hamptons. Ethan spared no expense to win Olivia over. Though she was initially dazzled by the lifestyle, she also found much to admire in his ambition. He seemed thoughtful at times, earnest in his desire to make a meaningful impact. Of course, the tabloids loved the pairing. Beauty from Queens dates real estate prince. Despite the publicity and the whirlwind pace, Olivia believed that behind the public glamour, Ethan was a caring man with genuine warmth. After a year of dating, Ethan proposed in a spectacular gesture on the rooftop of his newest luxury condo project overlooking Central Park, accompanied by a string quartet and a lavish fireworks display. Olivia, overwhelmed by emotion and his apparent devotion, said yes. A grand wedding followed at St. Patrick's Cathedral, with a reception at the iconic Rainbow Room. The guest list included CEOs, politicians, and celebrities, including rumored appearances by some high-profile figures such as design moguls and real estate tycoons. Olivia's parents were both awed and proud, despite feeling like fish out of water in such rarefied company. Looking back, Olivia often wondered if the glamour of Ethan's world blinded her to ominous warning signs. There were rumors about his past relationships, whispers of infidelity or unscrupulous business dealings. But Olivia brushed them aside, insisting she trusted him. Now, as she sat alone in a silent mansion, questioning every decision that led her here, she regretted not paying closer attention. The day her dream turned into a nightmare began with a phone call, one that would lead her to discover a deep betrayal that shook the foundation of her marriage and her faith in Ethan. The day Olivia's suspicions transformed into cold, hard truth started like any other. She woke up early, prepared breakfast French toast, fresh strawberries, and coffee, exactly the way Ethan liked it, but he barely touched his plate before rushing out, muttering something about an important business meeting downtown. She stood on the balcony overlooking the bustle of Fifth Avenue, trying to ignore the ominous feeling in her gut. Late that afternoon, Olivia was preparing for a charity auction they were scheduled to attend when a courier arrived at the penthouse. He handed her a small, discreetly wrapped envelope. Assuming it was another event invitation, Olivia opened it without much thought. Inside, she found photographs grainy, yet explicit enough to see Ethan intimately embracing a woman with dark hair and a striking figure. Her hands shook as she flipped through more photos that showcased the two leaving a hotel holding hands, and even sharing a passionate kiss by a private elevator. A note accompanied the pictures. "Your husband is cheating on you. He's been doing it for months. Ask him about the Orand Hotel." There was no signature. The letters were typed, giving no clue about who sent them. Olivia's mind reeled, her heart pounding in her chest. She felt betrayed, humiliated, and ashamed that someone else knew about this before she did, or at least had the audacity to present it to her like a sinister gift. She clutched the envelope, waiting in the living room until dusk. Ethan finally returned, distractedly loosening his tie and glancing at the mail on the table. When she confronted him with the photos, his face went pale, then quickly hardened. He snatched them from her hand, feigning outrage. "Where did you get these?" "They're fake. Someone is trying to blackmail me." His protestations sounded rehearsed. Olivia demanded to know who the woman was. At first, he tried to deny everything, claiming the pictures were altered. Olivia's tears and fury mounted. "Look me in the eyes and tell me you haven't been sleeping with her," she demanded, voice trembling. She showed him the hotel receipt from the Orand Hotel that had accidentally slipped out from one of the pictures. His name, her name, one suite, paid in full with his credit card. Hard to deny. In a sudden switch, Ethan dropped his act. He hurled the photos on the table. "Fine. Her name is Isabella Vance," he spat. "She's someone I've been seeing, but it's not what you think." Olivia's world shattered. Every detail of her life with Ethan, every memory, every promise felt like a cruel facade. She could barely breathe through the heartbreak. "How could you do this? How could you lie to me?" she cried. Ethan tried to close the distance between them, but she recoiled. "Olivia, listen, I can explain. It's complicated. I never intended for it to get this far." She slapped him. The sound echoed in the cavernous penthouse. "Get out," she commanded, tears streaming down her cheeks. She insisted he leave before she completely lost whatever composure remained. Ethan stormed out, leaving Olivia alone with only the cold comfort of her shattered reality. Little did he know that this moment, his final exit that evening, would be the first step in Olivia's journey to take him down in a way he never anticipated. The following weeks were a haze of heartbreak and confusion. Olivia avoided the tabloids, but she could not escape the persistent paparazzi outside her building, nor the swirl of rumors among Manhattan's elite. Friends from high society gatherings offered her half-hearted, sympathy's thinly veiled gossip sessions disguised as concern. Olivia realized how isolated she'd become in this new life, how few genuine friends she had. Chloe Davis, her longtime confidant, remained her rock, but Chloe was frequently out of town. Olivia's parents, Sophia and Robert, were worried sick. They wanted her to come home, but she resisted, clinging to some faint hope of salvaging her marriage. During this tumultuous period, Olivia discovered she was pregnant. The realization came one morning when she felt dizzy, nearly fainting in the bathroom. A slew of symptoms: nausea, extreme fatigue, emotional swings led her to take a test. When the result read positive, a mix of fear and excitement warred within her. After the initial shock, she felt an unexpected surge of love for the life growing inside her. This baby was her flesh and blood, entirely innocent, and she vowed to protect it at all costs. Yet the pregnancy weighed on her heart with new anxieties. Ethan was the father. How would he react? Would he dismiss the pregnancy as a trap, an inconvenience? Or, in some faint corner of her imagination, did she still hope it might bring him back? The swirl of questions was overwhelming. She resolved to inform Ethan, hoping, against all logic, that it might shift his perspective. When Olivia finally gathered the courage to call, the line went to voicemail. Several attempts later, She received a curt text. "I'm in a meeting. We'll talk when I'm free." Days passed without a word. Each night, she tossed and turned, feeling the gravity of her predicament. She was pregnant, alone, and losing faith in everything that once anchored her. In desperation, Olivia reached out to Ethan's mother, Evelyn Hamilton. Evelyn was a formidable woman, silver-haired, impeccably dressed, and fiercely protective of the Hamilton name. Perhaps she could reason with her son. When Olivia finally got through, Evelyn maintained a frosty politeness. "I'm sorry to hear about this situation, Olivia. However, Ethan is a grown man. I'm sure he'll do the right thing." The words rang hollow. Days turned into weeks. Olivia found herself pacing the penthouse, which felt eerily silent. The staff had mostly left, some dismissed by Ethan, others resigned out of uncertainty about the household's future. Bills still arrived, but she had limited access to the finances. Much of the money was tied up in trusts or business accounts under Ethan's name. She had credit cards, but Ethan had cut them off. Alone, pregnant, and financially cornered, Olivia felt abandoned. A phone call from an old friend provided a flicker of hope. David Chun, a lawyer she'd met during a pro bono project at NYU, offered his help. When she explained her predicament, David didn't hesitate. "Olivia, you have rights. He can't just leave you without support." For the first time in weeks, she sensed a glimmer of empowerment. Perhaps with David's guidance, she could confront Ethan properly, not just for herself, but for the child she carried. Isabella Vance was not new to the game of social climbing. She came from a working-class neighborhood, though her path had diverged significantly from Olivia's. By her early 20s, Isabella had reinvented herself, changing her accent, grooming her appearance, and learning the ins and outs of Manhattan's elite circles. She started as a club promoter, then became the face of upscale events, ingratiating herself with wealthy men. Over time, she learned the power of seduction, charm, and strategic networking. Ethan first encountered Isabella at a charity runway show, one of those extravagant events he attended to maintain a philanthropic facade. Isabella was modeling a designer's new line and managed to catch Ethan's eye. Later that night, she boldly approached him, sliding a cocktail napkin across the bar with her phone number scrolled in smooth cursive. From that moment, their dalliance began. Isabella was meticulous in her approach. She knew Ethan was married, but that only fueled her ambition. When she discovered the extent of his fortune, she engineered ways to appear indispensable. She would accidentally show up at the same galas, feigning surprise. She did research on his business interests, impressing him with her feigned knowledge of real estate development. Soon, she became his confidant, offering emotional support whenever he complained about stress, often painting Olivia as a wife who didn't understand his business demands. The affair escalated quickly, fueled by Ethan's arrogance and Isabella's calculated pursuit. They met in luxury hotels, ate at secluded Michelin-starred restaurants in Greenwich Village, and even jetted off to Miami under the guise of business trips. Isabella took notes every step of the way. She saved receipts, recorded voice notes, and photographed moments that proved their involvement. Evidence she stored in a secure cloud folder. In her mind, if Ethan ever tried to cast her aside, she would have ammunition to protect her newfound lifestyle. When Olivia discovered the affair, Isabella knew it was only a matter of time before the situation blew up. While Ethan scrambled to maintain damage control, Isabella began planting seeds of her own narrative. She confided in a few strategic friends, some of them reality TV hopefuls. Other social media influencers drip-feeding them tidbits about how Ethan had led her on and promised to leave his wife. She played the role of the victim, ensuring that if the story went public, it wouldn't paint her as a mere homewrecker, but as someone misled by a powerful man. Behind the scenes, Isabella had ambitions that stretched beyond being an affair partner. She wanted financial security, possibly a ring on her finger, or at least a significant settlement. She saw Olivia as an obstacle, someone whose presence in Ethan's life prevented him from fully giving in to Isabella's demands. The pregnancy, if Isabella knew about it, would be an even bigger threat to her plans. While Olivia was struggling with heartbreak and an uncertain future, Isabella was methodically tightening her grip on Ethan, playing to his vanity and fear. If he wanted to keep her from spilling secrets, he would need to keep her satisfied. Little did Isabella realize Olivia was no longer the naive wife she once was. A collision course was set, and both women were determined not to be the one left empty-handed. Confiding in lawyer David Chun was Olivia's first smart move. David had a sharp legal mind and an empathetic streak that set him apart from the high-powered, cutthroat attorneys of Ethan's world. He carefully reviewed Olivia's marriage documents, including the prenuptial agreement. The prenup had been Ethan's idea, orchestrated by his family's legal team before the wedding. At the time, Olivia had felt she had nothing to hide or fear. She trusted Ethan. Now, that same document loomed as a potential barrier to her financial security and her unborn child's well-being. Yet, David found some interesting angles. For one, Olivia had significantly compromised her own education and career opportunities at Ethan's request. This factor, coupled with the pregnancy, could be powerful in challenging parts of the prenup, especially under New York state law. David explained, "Judges aren't fond of punishing a spouse who's been sidelined from their own prospects, especially when a child is involved." With David's counsel, Olivia began meticulously documenting everything. She tracked expenses she could no longer pay due to Ethan freezing their joint accounts, recorded the times he ignored her calls about the pregnancy, and even saved text messages where he made veiled threats. David assured her these details would be invaluable should they need to litigate. Aside from legal help, Olivia found unexpected support from her NYU professors. When she emailed her old academic advisor, Dr. Eleanor Hayes, about her situation, Dr. Hayes offered words of encouragement and an open door to return to the program whenever she could. While it didn't solve her immediate crisis, the reassurance reminded Olivia she had her own life path, one that didn't solely revolve around Ethan's whims. Her parents, Robert and Sophia, remained her emotional anchors. Though they lived in a modest row home in Queens, far from the marble floors of the Hamilton penthouse, their home was a sanctuary of warmth and unconditional love. Olivia would drop by, and Sophia would cook her comforting meals while gently rubbing her back, telling her in Spanish, "Mija, you will find your strength." Robert, a proud man who rarely showed vulnerability, quietly handed her a small envelope of his own savings, insisting she take care of herself and the baby. Olivia, moved to tears, declined, but her father pressed it into her hands, unwavering in his insistence. Olivia also had her friend Chloe Davis, who had connections in philanthropic circles. Though Chloe was often traveling, she pulled strings to get Olivia invited to exclusive seminars and workshops on female entrepreneurship. Perhaps ironically, these events were typically attended by women seeking investments from the likes of Ethan Hamilton. But Olivia saw them as opportunities to build her own network. She met potential mentors and philanthropic leaders who ran nonprofits assisting women in crisis situations. Even a quick chat here, where there opened the possibility of forging new alliances outside of her crumbling marriage. The more Olivia gathered support, the clearer her mission became. She would not crumble under Ethan's betrayal. Instead, she would secure her future and that of her baby. With David preparing the groundwork and a renewed sense of purpose, Olivia took the first confident steps toward a battle she never dreamed she'd have to fight. While Olivia quietly strategized, Ethan sank deeper into a maze of deception. Eager to preserve his public image, he worked overtime in the media to paint himself as a misunderstood husband in a complicated marriage. Public relations teams churned out press releases about his commitment to philanthropy and ongoing efforts to support charities. He staged photo ops at children's hospitals and homeless shelters, trying to overshadow the gossip swirling about him and Isabella behind the scenes. However, Ethan was becoming unhinged. The real estate market was shifting. A few of his luxury developments stalled, financing got tighter, and new competition emerged in prime Manhattan locations. Investors demanded transparency, and some started raising eyebrows about his personal controversies. Questions rose. Was he reliable? Was his marriage scandal hinting at deeper professional instability? Ethan tried to appease Isabella to keep her from stirring more drama. He rented a penthouse suite at the prestigious Ventura Towers, discreetly putting it in her name. He spoiled her with expensive jewelry from Cartier, hoping the gifts would buy her silence and loyalty. Isabella, sensing an opportunity, pushed for more. She wanted to be seen as an integral part of his life, not just a secret fling. She pressed him to consider divorcing Olivia more aggressively, or at least making a public statement about their separation. Meanwhile, Ethan dodged Olivia's attempts to discuss the pregnancy. On a rare phone call he answered, he dismissed her news. "I can't handle this right now," he said tersely. "We'll talk when things settle." Olivia's repeated pleas for financial assistance went ignored. He assumed she was too timid to act without his goodwill, underestimating both her resolve and David's legal prowess. At the same time, Ethan employed his mother's family lawyer, a formidable figure named Arthur Sterling, to draft a restrictive post-nup agreement. The document intended to limit Olivia's claims in the event of a divorce, especially any spousal support, beyond a minimal monthly allowance. Ethan's plan was simple: corner Olivia financially, wearing her down until she agreed to terms favorable to him. He never once considered that Olivia would stand her ground, let alone gather the means to fight back on equal footing. In an increasingly paranoid state, Ethan also leaned on private investigators to watch Olivia. He wanted to ensure she wasn't meeting with lawyers or journalists who could further tarnish his name. The investigation revealed Olivia's frequent visits to a legal office in Midtown. Alarmed, Ethan confronted her at their penthouse one evening, banging on the door like a man possessed. Olivia opened it cautiously. The confrontation that followed was heated. "You dare involve attorneys behind my back?" he snarled. Olivia, trembling but steadfast, held her ground. "I gave you every opportunity to do the right thing, Ethan. You left me no choice." He stormed off, threatening to drag her through a public fight she couldn't win. "I'll bury you in your so-called lawyer," he spat. But the look in Olivia's eyes told him something had changed. She wasn't the timid housewife anymore. A reckoning was coming, and for once, Ethan felt a flicker of apprehension he couldn't entirely dismiss. Olivia's life was a whirlwind of doctor's appointments and legal consultations. Her OB-GYN, Dr. Sarah Miller, confirmed that despite the stress, her pregnancy was progressing normally. Minimize anxiety, Dr. Miller advised gently, knowing full well how impossible that seemed given Olivia's marital crisis. Each ultrasound became a refuge of joy, a reminder that something precious was waiting at the end of this painful journey. One particularly rainy afternoon, Olivia received a phone call from a blocked number. She hesitated but answered. A woman's voice whispered urgently, "We have a common enemy, Ethan Hamilton. Meet me at Café Lumiere tomorrow at noon." Before Olivia could ask a single question, the line went dead. Curiosity battled caution, but Olivia decided to go. The next day, she stepped into the cozy cafe and scanned the room. In a corner booth sat a woman in dark sunglasses, sipping tea. She beckoned Olivia over. Removing the glasses, the woman introduced herself as Megan Riley, a former employee of one of Ethan's real estate holding companies. Megan claimed she had proof of financial misdeeds, embezzlement, fraudulent contracts, and inflated valuations that could bring Ethan's empire down. She said she was fired unjustly, shorted on severance, and threatened with legal action if she went public. Olivia listened, her heart pounding. Megan pushed a folder across the table. Inside were spreadsheets, email correspondence, and financial statements showing suspicious transactions. "I'm risking a lot by giving you this," Megan confessed, "but I can't let him ruin any more lives." Though overwhelmed, Olivia recognized the power of this information. If Ethan was committing fraud, it could compromise any settlement Olivia was entitled to. Moreover, it could jeopardize the legacy and trust funds for her baby. But stepping into this territory was dangerous. She asked Megan why she didn't go to the authorities directly. "Ethan's lawyers would bury me," Megan explained, eyes glinting with anger. "They drag my name through the mud, claim I stole data. I need someone with a legitimate reason to use this evidence. Someone who won't be easily dismissed. That's you. Olivia felt a mixture of dread and determination. This was bigger than just spousal support or child custody. If what Megan revealed was true, it could land Ethan in prison or at least force him into a corner where he'd have to negotiate. Olivia reached for her phone, snapping photos of each document, her hands shaking. She thanked Megan and promised to keep her identity confidential for now. That night, Olivia met with David and laid out the folder. As he pored over the documents, his professional composure cracked into surprise. This is damning. If it holds up, Ethan is in serious trouble. But be prepared for backlash. He'll fight tooth and nail to protect himself. For Olivia, the evidence represented a turning point. No longer was she just a forsaken wife seeking justice. Now she had leverage, real leverage, to hold Ethan accountable for every wrongdoing. With her unborn child's future at stake, Olivia steeled herself. She would not back down, no matter what storm Ethan tried to unleash. The decision to proceed with legal action solidified when Olivia realized Ethan had stopped paying the penthouse mortgage and utilities. She received eviction notices and panicked phone calls from property managers. With nowhere else to turn, she packed her belongings and moved in with her parents, determined to spare herself the humiliation of being thrown onto the street. David wasted no time filing a lawsuit, seeking both divorce and substantial alimony, child support, and damages for emotional distress. He also initiated a separate investigation into Ethan's business dealings, forwarding some of Megan Riley's documents to trusted financial analysts who could corroborate their authenticity. While criminal charges were not within Olivia's direct power to file, the evidence could be turned over to the district attorney if needed. Word spread fast in Manhattan's social and legal circles. Suddenly, Olivia was no longer the quiet, jilted spouse. She was a formidable adversary, armed with claims that threatened Ethan's carefully curated image. Gossip columns churned out stories speculating about Ethan's alleged embezzlement, while social media was abuzz with commentary on the sensational case. In the midst of the frenzy, Isabella Vance tried to salvage her own position. She clung to Ethan, pushing for public reassurance of their relationship, or at least a financial arrangement that ensured her future. But Ethan was under immense pressure from multiple fronts: investors, lawyers, the press. He no longer had the bandwidth to placate Isabella, which made her increasingly restless. She started dropping hints in online fashion forums and gossip sites, implying she had her own trove of damaging information if she wasn't treated fairly. Still, she stopped short of betraying Ethan outright, calculating that her best move was to see how the court drama played out. Olivia's pregnancy advanced. She was in her second trimester, beginning to show. Despite the chaos, she discovered a surprising inner peace whenever she felt the baby flutter. Her mother's home became a refuge. She helped Sophia cook meals, watch telenovelas in the evenings, and occasionally try to distract herself with crocheting baby blankets. During these quieter moments, a growing determination fueled her. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for her child's right to a secure future. David scheduled a meeting with Ethan's legal team to discuss the possibility of an out-of-court settlement. The day of the meeting, Olivia and David walked into a high-rise conference room overlooking Central Park. Ethan, flanked by Arthur Sterling and two junior associates, barely looked at Olivia. His face was taut, jaw clenched. The tension in the room was palpable. Sterling opened with a dismissive tone, offering a paltry settlement. "We believe Mrs. Hamilton is entitled to a modest monthly allowance, given the short duration of the marriage and the prenuptial agreement." Olivia felt her blood boil. David smiled thinly and slid copies of key financial records across the sleek table. "We also have reason to believe that Mr. Hamilton engaged in fraudulent activities," David said, his voice measured. "This evidence can be introduced in court if no fair agreement is reached." Ethan's eyes flashed with alarm. He shot a glare at Olivia. The meeting ended in a stalemate, but Olivia could see the cracks. For the first time, Ethan appeared genuinely uneasy. The road to court was set, and both sides were gearing up for a showdown with massive consequences. The trial commenced on a crisp morning at the New York Supreme Court. A throng of reporters and curious onlookers gathered outside, cameras flashing as Olivia, with her baby bump visible beneath a tailored maternity dress, made her way through the crowd. Ethan arrived separately, a scowl plastered on his face. His expensive suit and aloof demeanor only reinforced the distance between them. Inside the wood-paneled courtroom, Judge Eleanor Preston presided, an experienced jurist known for her no-nonsense approach. Judge Preston was unimpressed by high-profile theatrics. She immediately laid ground rules, cautioning both parties that outbursts and media manipulation would be met with stern consequences. David opened Olivia's case with a measured emotional appeal. He described her sacrifices for the marriage, leaving her master's program, giving up her own aspirations, and the emotional toll inflicted by Ethan's affair and a subsequent abandonment. Evidence of Ethan's refusal to acknowledge the pregnancy or provide support was laid out, including text messages, phone call logs, and anecdotal testimony from Olivia's mother, Sophia, who described Olivia's distress in heartbreaking detail. Ethan's legal team countered with a narrative portraying Olivia as an opportunist. They argued that she benefited from the lavish lifestyle and was now trying to cash in further. Arthur Sterling insisted that any wrongdoing on Ethan's part was a personal failing, separate from his obligations under the prenuptial agreement, which Olivia had signed willingly. Then came the curveball, financial records. David presented spreadsheets detailing suspicious wire transfers and shell companies tied to Ethan's developments. One of the star witnesses was Megan Riley, who testified about her experiences within Ethan's company, how she'd been asked to falsify documents, and then fired when she refused. She recounted internal emails from Ethan referencing creative accounting, which was code for illegal funneling of funds. The gallery buzzed with surprise. On cross-examination, Sterling tried to discredit Megan, painting her as a disgruntled ex-employee, but Megan held her composure, referencing times, dates, and direct quotes. Judge Preston allowed the evidence into the record, though she made no immediate ruling on the validity of the allegations, stating she would consider them in conjunction with further expert testimony. As the day progressed, Isabella Vance was called to the stand by Olivia's team, an unexpected twist that sent murmurs through the courtroom. She arrived wearing designer attire, looking more like she was attending a fashion premiere than a legal proceeding. Her testimony was guarded, but under oath, she admitted to the affair and revealed that Ethan had promised her financial security if she kept their relationship discreet. While she tried to downplay her motivations, cross-examination painted her as complicit in hiding funds. She clammed up, refusing to provide further detail about offshore accounts or hush money she may have received, claiming she didn't recall. The tension in the courtroom peaked when Ethan took the stand. Barely meeting Olivia's gaze, he tried to justify his actions, chalking up the affair to a moment of weakness. He disparaged the financial allegations as a smear campaign, accusing Olivia of colluding with a bitter ex-employee. But his bravado cracked under David's pointed questions and the mountain of documented evidence. By the end of the first week, the public narrative shifted dramatically. The once untouchable real estate mogul was no longer seen as a misunderstood husband. Evidence of corporate malfeasance, combined with his callous treatment of a pregnant wife, painted a far darker picture. The stage was set for a bombshell verdict, one that could change Olivia's life forever. Tensions soared as the trial reached its midpoint. Judge Preston allowed both parties to present additional witnesses and finalize depositions. Courtroom gossip suggested Ethan was scrambling to contain new revelations, including potential witness statement from disgruntled investors who had lost money in his stalled developments. Moreover, it became apparent that the district attorney's office was paying close attention to the proceedings, especially the financial data exposed by Olivia's team. The biggest twist came when an anonymous tip was delivered to David's office, containing a flash drive with more damning correspondence between Ethan and key executives in his organization. The emails explicitly discussed forging contractual documents and concealing losses from shareholders. The tipster turned out to be none other than one of Ethan's junior associates, who had grown uneasy with the lies and found a way to leak the files. When David submitted the drive as evidence, Sterling exploded in protest, claiming it was unverified and illegally obtained. Judge Preston allowed a forensic review, and the digital fingerprints confirmed the emails were authentic. During a recess, Ethan approached Olivia in the corridor, a desperation in his eyes she had never seen before. "Olivia," he began quietly, "let's talk. We can settle this without dragging each other through more mud." He proposed a substantial payout, enough for Olivia to live comfortably and raise their child, on the condition that she withdraw the lawsuit and make no further mention of criminal allegations. For a brief second, Olivia felt an old pang of something akin to pity for the man she had once loved, but then she remembered the months of abandonment, the cruelty, and the unborn child he had so callously ignored. "Too late, Ethan," she replied, her voice resolute. "I trusted you once. That's never happening again." She turned away, leaving Ethan to seethe in silent frustration. Isabella Vance's actions also threw a wrench into the case. Afraid of becoming a scapegoat, she privately reached out to David, offering more incriminating information in exchange for immunity from any potential legal fallout. Through this, Olivia's team uncovered that Isabella had personally facilitated the creation of shell companies at Ethan's behest, receiving a sizable commission. The Mistress, who once reveled in her perceived victory over Olivia, was now an inadvertent ally. Isabella's defection triggered chaos in Ethan's camp, undermining his credibility even further. As proceedings neared conclusion, the media labeled the case as the Hamilton scandal. Major outlets like the New York Times and CNN covered the trial, dissecting every revelation. Online, people rallied behind Olivia as a symbol of resilience against privileged men who thought they were above the law. In a final act of cunning, Sterling tried to claim Olivia was meddling with crucial evidence, an accusation that fell apart under scrutiny. Judge Preston dismissed the motion, reiterating that the financial records and witness testimonies were sufficiently vetted. Sensing the tide of the trial turning against them, Sterling filed motions to postpone hearings, hoping to buy time. But Judge Preston was firm, pressing both sides to expedite. Ultimately, it became clear that Ethan was cornered. The illusions he had crafted were shattered, replaced by an avalanche of facts and testimonies pointing toward his guilt, both in his marriage and his business dealings. His attempts to shift blame onto Olivia or Isabella simply didn't resonate. With the final hearing looming, all that remained was the judge's decision, a verdict that would either vindicate Olivia's fight for justice or send her back to the margins of a broken dream. The final day of the trial was a spectacle. Every seat in the courtroom was filled, and an overflow crowd congregated in the hall, straining to catch fragments of the proceedings. Olivia arrived early, feeling her baby move gently in her womb, a reassuring reminder of why she fought so hard. Ethan walked in, pale, his confident stride reduced to a stiff shuffle. Judge Preston began by addressing the divorce and financial settlement. She stated plainly that Ethan, by ignoring his pregnant wife and cutting off financial resources, had violated the spirit of support inherent in marriage. The judge invalidated key sections of the prenuptial agreement, citing the grossly imbalanced circumstances under which Olivia was left. The courtroom sat in silence as Judge Preston awarded Olivia a substantial monthly spousal support and child support package. Additionally, Judge Preston granted Olivia a sizable portion of Ethan's assets, ensuring not only the baby's welfare, but also Olivia's long-term stability. Yet the drama didn't end there. Judge Preston also addressed the allegations of financial malfeasance. While the divorce court couldn't hand down criminal penalties, the judge noted that enough evidence had surfaced to warrant further investigation by prosecutors. She strongly recommended the case be forwarded to the district attorney's office, stating, "The court cannot ignore evidence of widespread fraud. This matter demands a thorough legal review by the appropriate authorities." A hush fell over the room. Olivia glanced at David, relief flooding her. They had done it. They hadn't just secured financial justice. They had exposed a web of deceit that could no longer be hidden. Ethan's expression was a mix of disbelief and impotent rage. Isabella, seated behind Ethan's legal team, looked visibly shaken. Her dreams of living as a millionaire's companion were crumbling before her eyes. As Judge Preston finished reading her judgment, gavel slamming on the wooden desk, the flurry of reporters rose to unleash questions. Olivia's name rang out in a cacophony of voices, but she kept her head high, guided by David and Chloe as they navigated the camera-laden exit. Outside, Olivia hesitated briefly, turning to face the crowd. She took a breath, then calmly stated, "I hope my story helps others understand. You can stand up for yourself, no matter how powerful the opposition seems." Then she continued on her way, ignoring the further torrent of inquiries. The next few weeks were a blur. Olivia moved into a modest but comfortable apartment on the Upper West Side, arranged through the settlement's immediate disbursement. She resumed her studies at NYU, determined to complete her master's degree before the baby arrived. Meanwhile, Ethan's empire began to collapse under the weight of investor lawsuits and a looming criminal investigation. Isabella Vance attempted to vanish from the public eye, but rumors suggested she was also under scrutiny for her involvement. Through it all, Olivia felt a renewed sense of purpose. She woke each morning aware of her growing belly, her future brightened by the knowledge that she had not only survived but overcome betrayal of the highest order. In the months that followed the trial, Olivia's life slowly fell into a new, more peaceful rhythm. The tabloids eventually found other scandals to chase, and Olivia was able to reclaim a measure of anonymity. She dedicated herself to finishing her sociology degree, diving into research projects centered on family law and socioeconomic disparities, a subject now deeply personal to her. She wrote papers on how legal systems often fail marginalized spouses when wealthy partners exploit prenuptial agreements. Professors praised her for turning her life experience into academic insight that could help others. Her pregnancy progressed, and with each milestone hearing the baby's heartbeat, the first flutter of a kick, Olivia felt a profound sense of gratitude. Her mother accompanied her to Lamaze classes, and her father, while initially awkward about the idea of childbirth, proudly showed off ultrasound photos to his coworkers at the construction site. It became a family affair, grounded in warmth and genuine love. Meanwhile, Ethan's fall from grace was both swift and public. Investigations led to criminal charges for fraud and embezzlement, and multiple lawsuits hammered the once glamorous Hamilton real estate empire. Despite attempts to negotiate plea deals, the evidence was simply too damning. Isabella Vance was subpoenaed, and the last Olivia heard, Isabella had turned state's witness in exchange for leniency. The woman who had once lorded her affair over Olivia now sang a different tune in front of prosecutors. Periodically, Olivia wondered if Ethan felt remorse not just for betraying her, but for risking the stability of their unborn child. His minimal attempts at contact came through stiff legal channels. Yet, Olivia refused to let bitterness shape her future. With the help of therapy, she learned to separate the heartbreak from her sense of self-worth. She resolved that her child would know they were conceived in love, even if the marriage itself had soured. Whatever chaos followed was on Ethan, not on them. Finally, on a bright, brisk morning in late spring, Olivia gave birth to a healthy baby boy, Liam Hamilton Walker. David and Chloe visited the hospital, bearing gifts and wide smiles. Olivia's parents wept joyfully, marveling at their tiny grandson. The moment Olivia held Liam, she felt an indescribable wave of fulfillment. In that instant, every hardship, every tear shed in her darkest hours, felt like a stepping stone leading to this precious miracle. A few weeks later, comfortably settled back in her apartment, Olivia sat in a rocking chair with Liam asleep in her arms. She gazed out the window at the Manhattan skyline. The city she once found intimidating, then later a battlefield, was now just a place like any author tapestry of triumph and tragedy, but also of quiet, everyday life. She felt neither hatred nor regret, only a quiet sense of accomplishment and a deep, abiding love for her son. She had faced betrayal, humiliation, and a daunting legal battle. In the end, she emerged stronger, forging a new path for herself and her son. As she softly hummed a lullaby, Olivia realized that life's fiercest storms often pave the way for the most beautiful new beginnings. She had proven to herself and to the world that even a millionaire's abandoned wife could rise from the ashes stronger, wiser, and ready to embrace a brighter, more authentic tomorrow. Thank you for joining us on this tumultuous journey through heartbreak, scandal, and ultimate triumph. Olivia Walker's determination and courage remind us that no matter how powerful the opposition, justice can prevail when we fight for our rights and refuse to be silenced. If you found yourself moved by Olivia's story, her grit in the face of betrayal, her relentless pursuit of truth, and her unwavering love for her unborn child, then please show your support. Like this video to let us know you appreciate compelling stories of resilience and justice. Share Olivia's remarkable journey to inspire those who may be facing their own battles. Subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for more dramatic, real-life inspired stories that showcase the human spirit's ability to overcome even the darkest obstacles. Hit the notification bell and be the first to witness more stories of courage, hope, and the enduring power of fighting for what's right.